know, it starts with the fact that a guy's got to go in there with a machine that he holds in his hands and cut that thing down. There are no two trees anywhere in the world that are exactly the same. And growing those trees and caring for those trees and then ultimately cutting those trees down and getting them to market is an infinitely complex, variable task. So it's not a boring job. No 2 days are the same.
These giant Douglas firs of British Columbia's forest lands, firs that stood command like lofty sentinels over a then unknown Canada. For thousands of years they have held dominion over the kingdom of the forest, but today, hundreds of feet below their majestic heads, mere man proceeds methodically about the business of furnishing the world with one of the basic commodities of civilization.
Well, yeah, it was very exciting work. It's very challenging work. To go out into the coastal mountains, for example, and knock down a tree that's 4 feet in diameter and get that tree out into the salt water and off to a sawmill is a pretty major task.
When the undercut is completed, the direction of falling is sighted along the axe handle. From the side opposite the undercut, the sawing begins, and after this has been accomplished, a wedge is inserted in the breech and lustily hammered into position. And this great creature of nature comes hurtling towards the forest's floor.
Cutting down a 4-foot diameter Douglas fir tree with an axe is a pretty big job. So what that meant then, once you had the crosscut saw, was that first you'd make an undercut, a flat undercut. Then you would using an axe, you would cut the notch in it, and then you would come in from behind with the crosscut saw and make a falling cut, and the tree would fall over that way. You had to have a saw 7-8 feet long, and it took 2 people generally to operate that saw, and they would have to cut notches in the tree to get up above the swell and where all the pitch and stuff was down at the bottom, and they would be maybe 10 feet off the ground standing on boards that were stuck into these notches. So it required a lot of agility and a lot of physical strength to pull that saw back and forth and so on. Then once you got that tree in the ground, of course, it has to be bucked into logs, and that can be even a trickier, more dangerous proposition on steep ground or rough ground, because those trees are all sorts of angles, and in order to buck them, you have to get in underneath them, and so on.
Snap! Off she goes. It's no parlor game, this, but to the hardy lumberman, it's just another topping experience.
And there was a standing offer of a keg of beer for whichever crew loaded out the most number of carloads of logs a day. So the highball logging part there was incentives for that. The company pushed that. The workers went along with that. They liked that. And that was part of that attitude. If you're a real logger, you can take that. If you're a real logger, you take those shortcuts to highball, to get production happening, to, in this case, get the keg of beer. A lot of them got hurt, and it was very easy to get yourself into a position where you were tired or you were going too fast, too hard, and you weren't observing what was going on around you. That was one kind of the high pressure that mechanization brought in. There were lots of people hurt packing around the old crosscut saws and the axes and that stuff. They were always getting cut with these things. Of course, when you got an engine running in your hand, you have a tendency to work harder and faster, and particularly when you're getting paid by piecework. And if the machine can go, you wind up trying to keep up with the machine.
Meanwhile, buckers have been busy cutting the massive timber into convenient lengths, preparatory for the hauling. And the crashing of trees and logs, the puffing and grunting of these valiant donkey engines. Given a convenient stream, the logs are snaked to a skidway, which shoots them into the water, bound for the mill. It is an exciting experience.
It can be incredibly dangerous and a difficult task, requiring an enormous amount of skill and courage and all those factors. So this is not like going to work in a job in a factory or a sawmill even. Every day is different. The challenges of being out there are enormous. That challenge, of course, attracted the kind of people who were up to that challenge. And I think that that is still what attracts people to that work. It pays well, it requires a lot of skill, it requires a lot of smarts, and it's something to think about when you get up in the morning. It's not going off to a dull job.